God's Way, YTVY, welcome to it. I'm Adolphina Shephard, and this is my co-host, Thomas Knight Templar.
I thought you were going to forget. You just blew that opening. Anyway.
Yeah, first time ever, right? In 14 seasons. That's because
you got to give her one.
Yeah, because she went, ooh, I wasn't ready.
Okay. Well, go ahead, you go.
Okay, so
Do
anyway.
I know who I am in this show?
Do you know who you are?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Good.
All right. Anyway, as usual, folks, we have a wonderful show lined up, and we have a fascinating subject. We're going to be talking about part 2 of Iridology with Birgit Lueders, our iridologist.
Thank you.
She's been on before. We did a part 1 on physical and spiritual. Now we're going to be focusing on the discernment of the emotional and mental bodies. And so we'll go with that after we introduce our other fabulous guest, which you've seen her before doing the yearly forecast astrologically, and she's a wonderful hypnotist, and that's Mary Silvernail.
Thank you, Adolphina. Thank you, Tommy, for having me. It's a
Yeah.
very interesting show. I'm looking forward to this tonight.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you want to tell a little bit about yourself, and then we'll go to
Sure.
Birgit, because otherwise I know this is going to be so involved
know.
that we're going
I'll
to be
take
focusing
over.
on that. Yeah, she'll be taking over.
That's fine. It's so interesting. It really is. I'm looking forward to it. Anyway, I'm a board-certified advanced clinical hypnotist and an astrologer and a Native American shaman. And I'm very happy to be here again today. And
And
I'm
a pro
really
bowler,
interested.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Okay, I made
But
that
anyway, so thank you for having me today.
Well, you know we love you, and we're happy you can be here. And you know what? You did the forecast this year, didn't
Yes,
you, for
I did.
2019? I'm
Yes,
going to
I
have to go
did.
back and look at that, because I
Oh,
don't
yeah.
remember too much
I
about
think I
it.
saw it
Well,
actually.
yeah.
On
Yeah.
YouTube.
Yeah, well, that's because we're dealing with all these retrograde planets right now, you know.
You had to
But,
say that
yeah.
word.
Okay.
Weren't the sandwiches enough tonight?
Yeah, and then my
I'm
phones, I got
sorry,
a
I
couple
shouldn't
of them.
even laugh
They
about
just
that.
disappeared.
Yeah.
I mean, I was on, they were on my desk because I was using them this morning,
Yeah.
and bing, bang, boom,
Gone.
gone.
Your
So,
cell phones?
my cell phones,
Yeah.
brand
Yeah.
new.
Well, we
Brand
have
new,
5
they're
planets retrograde right now, so that's why all this is going on.
Well, Tommy
But that's
said
okay.
it's a timeline shift too. So,
Yes,
and
and it
I
is.
know I was
I
told on the
agree with
way
him.
here that there was a timeline shift right then and there. So,
They've been shifting like crazy.
yeah, yeah. So, but
Okay.
anyway, let's turn it over to Birgit, and we
Yes.
want to start with you, so you could tell us a little bit about yourself for those who haven't seen you, and about iridology.
Okay. So my name is Birgit. I've been here like 5 years ago. We're trying
It
to
was
figure
about
out
5
when
years
it
ago.
was.
Yeah.
And at that time, we just like briefly talked about the physical iridology, but I still have my business. It's called Birgit Care. I also have our own school now, Center for Iridology, where I teach other holistic practitioners how to assess the iris. And I'm also now the vice president of the International Iridology Association, so I'm very excited about that, going on to be the president.
Oh, yeah.
I know, and I'm actually having a big, huge trip coming up to Australia
How
as
fabulous.
a speaker, and then I'll take over the role as a president.
How
So,
nice that is.
Very excited.
Well, I mean, obviously you earned it, because these type of things just don't fall into your lap. You know what I mean? So.
I did it for like, 12 years now? 15
Right.
years, even longer. So today we came up with the idea of coming back because there's so much research going out about iridology, not about the physical, also about the emotional iridology, and we want to talk a little bit more about that. But briefly, I want to just quickly tell people that there's always this confusion how to pronounce the word iridology, and I thought I'd just
She's
bring it up.
correcting me because I couldn't get it right before.
No,
Okay.
there's actually really a conflict even within the iridologists, because the British version is iridology, but the American version is iridology. So you can say it both ways. So
Right, right.
There's no right and wrong. So I had this big conversation.
Well, they
'cause-
started the language first. We just screwed it up. Yeah, so
and
it's
because
all
I
right.
take on the president position, I'm keep saying iridology, and sometimes they say you should say iridology. So there we are.
Yeah, it doesn't feel right, though. You know what I mean? The way it rolls off the
If
tongue,
you're
it
in
doesn't
Australia, it
feel
should be
right.
half and half.
I know. So I just want to briefly bring a little history about it, because we are fascinated with the irises for thousands of years. And the Babylons, we know from historical foundings, have seen disease through the iris 1000 BC. And the way the Europeans came onto iridology was 1860. There was this story from this Hungarian doctor who found this owl. You can go and Google it, because I'm not telling the story, because there's now, like, they're saying it might not be right or wrong. I mean, there's like a conflict with it. But this is how he got into iridology, and he was a medical doctor, and he devoted his whole career to iridology. And at the end, this was the sad thing, he said at his deathbed, literally, I see the sign, but no disease. And this is where we are going now. Actually, iridology turns into more of an emotional, spiritual, physical, genetic blueprint. So we can see things, but it doesn't mean it has to happen. So for longest time, the American iridology has been founded from Bernard Jensen in the 1940s till 1980s, and we were kind of pointing out a lot of like signs we see in the irises. And so in this case, we don't want to scare people away anymore. And so we're grouping it now. So it's called the modern iridology, which was 1980s, for Joseph Deck, a German iridologist. He actually takes all the signs together and groups it. And this is exactly what I'm doing today now. With the emotional iridology, we're going to see some pictures that are brought to the table today, and we're grouping things together, and then we found out certain kind of personality traits in it. And
Yeah.
this is why I come with part 2 to you now,
Right,
so
right.
that we can talk a little bit about it, what's going on, and how that all developed. And emotional iridology is just coming off from the Chinese medicine. Chinese medicine knew that every organ system is connected to specific emotion. Most holistic practitioners know about it. And in this case, for example, like heart and small intestines are connected to the loss of joy.
Loss of joy.
Loss of joy. So when you have like, a dreadful job and you go every day and know you don't get appreciated, and suddenly you drop dead with a heart attack. So there,
Nice. You know,
I
gotta
don't
put
want
the
to be
guy
a
out of his
downer.
misery.
Really?
I don't want to be a downer, but there's also the connection with kidney and bladder. Think about that. Kidney and bladder is associated with fear. Who has the most problems?
People who have kidney stones have a lot of fear, and she had pointed out to me when she did my picture, as you know, if you probably remember, if you watch the show regularly, my husband of so many years crossed over last year, and she said the lungs hold grief. Well, I knew that, but the interesting thing is it actually showed in my eye.
Yeah, exactly. And for example, like fear, a lot of like little kids sometimes are bedwetting because they're just starting school. They have to come out of their, safe environment, and that's kidney and bladder is connected to fear.
That makes sense why so many kids wet their bed.
Right?
Yes, it
Or
does.
the bladder is also connected to the ears and the kidneys. So ear infection is one of the things that always happens to little children when they're in school, because they get authority from teachers and they're not used to that.
Oh.
And it's like a harsh environment.
Oh, you're right. That's a big thing for kids.
Yeah. So, I mean, of course, then the question is like, okay, if I'm one day fearful, gonna have like bladder issues, it's not like that at all. One of great iridologists explained it to me. It's like holding like a little pen in your hand, like this bracelet, for example, right? If I just hold it for like, 10 minutes, it has no weight. Right? But if I hold it all day now and I have to straighten my hand out, then it's going to get heavier and heavier. And this is exactly what I'm pointing out with that kind of organ system with the emotion. If you hold on to that emotion for more than like 3-4 months, 6 months, a year, then that organ system can take some beating.
Well, any type of, as an energy worker, I mean, any type of emotional problem or trauma, it starts out in your aura, it starts out and then
Yep.
grows closer and closer until it lodges itself somewhere in your body,
And then you own it.
and then you own it, and then,
And
right.
that's why photography
So,
is my
right.
hobby, because that also is a discernment method. Before you become ill, it shows in your aura.
Yeah.
Same with this, with the eyes. I'll tell the story that happened to me about how I got turned on to iridology a little
The
later.
thing-
But
Yeah.
Talking about the thing with the eyes.
Right.
The only thing on the human body that does not change is the eyes.
Yeah.
but they do.
No, they don't. They
No,
just
they-
get,
they-
they get
they-
older, they do not change.
addition
progress.
comes on it. Yeah.
Okay? But they do not change. It's the only part of the body. Your cells are always multiplying, falling off, drying out, and everything else like that. Your skin will get wrinkly, you'll be depleted, serotonin, all that stuff that makes you young.
Right.
Your
And
HGH will
that's-
go in the toilet, your growth hormones,
Exactly.
everything else.
That's
But
why I brought the
eye does
emotional
not
map.
do that.
Well, you know, but yet I have rings in my eyes that I didn't have before.
They got stronger. They were here, but we didn't see it as strong.
Oh,
because
yeah, it was quite obvious.
Over years and years, the little gray area could turn more and more black, or the brown pigment or the sandy ash brown sign can get really black the older we get, but it was always there.
Okay, so it just things add to it. You know, another good tool besides iridology is wet blood cell analysis. I swear by that, the aura and iridology.
Yeah, I think I brought the picture of the emotional blueprint map.
Yeah.
This is from Georgina Kier. She is from Vancouver. I use that map because she has attached the emotion to
Do we have that?
specific
Do we have-
organs.
Do we have that?
That
No,
right.
no, do we have that?
I think we have it. Yeah.
Brian, do you have that? Can you put that up?
It's if we don't bring it up, that's the first.
That's called an
picture.
eyeball, Brian. Give me
That's
something
fine.
else.
Let's. I can just announce it. Like for example, when somebody has a skin ring, like it's a black ring around it. We talked about skin. That's the saying of like somebody's getting under your skin. Or when you have jaw problems, then it's about like the grin and bear kind of attitude. You know, even if you don't want to have it true, you're like at night grinding your teeth. Or one thing that I really like is actually breast tissue and breast cancer is attached to the feeling of not being emotionally nurtured. And I think that's fascinating because most women who have breast cancer are the nurturer. They give so much love to their children, they give so much love to their grandparents, parents, but they always give and they don't know how to receive. Some of them even feel totally uncomfortable to receive back, like
Wow.
getting a massage or anything. And so I had one client coming into my practice and she actually pointed out that she had breast cancer twice. And so she could not learn how to take love.
Bring that in. Bring that in. I want to just show everybody this
Yeah.
because it's not coming up on the screen. Hello, somebody. All right, Chris, bring it in.
So as you can see in the bottom line, we say 6 o'clock, it's adrenals. And if you see that, what it says here, it says trust or adrenals.
Trust, adrenal, and fear.
Exactly. And this goes around the whole area, like gallbladder and liver is about anger, suppressed anger. And all those little things can give you the story to the body's physical weakness, right? So if we just kind of like move a little bit forward, what does that mean now if there's emotional iridology? Well, when I see an iris picture now, right? When we take an iris picture, I didn't bring it to the show, and there's like space apart, and you see more black space fluid in this area, then I know to ask about their emotional well-being. Like for example, I had a client who had like a sign at the knee area, that's 6 o'clock when you look at your map. And I tried all the herbs, I tried everything, nutrition, nothing worked until finally I said, is there something that you don't step forward to? Like you're not taking the next step,
Oh,
which is the knee, the joint pain in the knee.
Oh,
So
yeah.
sometimes people have knee pains, they're actually kind of blocked in the way of their life and they want to actually
If
be
their emotions
somewhere
are
else.
tied to the joints.
Yes.
Like we had a healer on that does exactly that. She removes those things.
Yeah.
And when she did it to me, I had surgery on my hand.
Yeah.
And she took out all the rest of the damage that I had. The only spot that hurt me was right on the knuckle.
Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
Everything else was healed.
And that's exactly what I do then. I'm going to refer them to energy healers or refer them to get meditation and sit with the feeling of not stepping into your life. Or I suggest emotional freedom tapping. I don't know if you guys know about
Yeah.
emotional
Yeah.
freedom tapping.
Just here, tap on it.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
Or I use color puncture, which is like a form of acupuncture with the color lights, which I do.
Yeah, I had that before years ago, and they used silver on me, which is interesting because now, the past 2 or 3 years, I have been insanely crazy about silver. Never before. Look, I even have a silver nail polish.
That's true. I remember that. So, why do we talk about this organ system and emotions? It's because this is what we did now with emotional iridology. We grouped them together. And this is where we can look at my the first picture, just the blue eyes. We can keep that up there. Because now we have personality traits for actually the different iris colors we have. The blue eye, the brown, and the mixed iris. So blue irises usually have the personality trait of taking everybody else's stuff on. And I'm turning to you because what that means is when we want just a balanced life, but when we hear that somebody is hurt or somebody needs our help, we're so worried about their problems that it becomes our problem. Right?
Yeah, it's very difficult to have detachment, especially if you're in a very, very close relationship.
Yeah, so they need to learn to honor themselves, they need to protect themselves so they know
Well,
how.
you just need not to absorb the other person's energy.
Yes.
That's the point of it, like just surround yourself and make your deal that you're not going to accept their sickness. You're going to help them with their sickness or their problem, but you're not going to absorb it.
Exactly, and generally said now, blue-eyed people have to work on that. That doesn't come natural for them to protect themselves, to honor themselves. So the organ system that's attached to that is the immune system.
It's like
what?
this is
The
like
immune
self-promoting
system.
with you
Oh.
two.
Yeah.
Blue.
I know, that's what I'm I'm
Girls
getting to you.
guy. Girls guy. What's wrong with this picture?
I'm getting to you.
I'm telling you.
So that means the immune system, because the immune system is about being being attacked from the outside, right? So taking on somebody else's stuff, viruses, being attacked. So they need protection. Mixed irises, which you both have, I've seen, they are mixed between blue and brown. They're more into being more multidimensional. You guys can see things from every different angle and analyze it and understand it. But there's also the thing that you can get a little bit emotional up and down, right? And there's also the saying, this is a stereotyping. And there's also the saying they have to learn to let go and release. But of course, you both are in the holistic field. That would not be your way of living. But what that means is the connection to the organ system would be the liver. Because the liver is all about every kind of emotion or energy motion that's moving, right? And so we collect it in the gallbladder, bitterness, when we have mixed
I
irises.
said, with all the aggravation I've had, I should have spit that
It's
thing out.
it's coming
Yeah.
up.
And there's so many people who do have their gallbladders removed.
Yes. So it's kind of like we're suppressing our anger. We're not punching each other anymore, but maybe that's what we have to do. No, I'm saying.
Okay.
Punch a punching bag.
Yeah.
You can release it that way, or like what you were saying, I mean, like the kind of work that we do
Yes.
is energy healing, as far
Yeah.
as, like, I do Native American shamanism and Reiki,
beautiful.
and Tommy does his very
Song and dance, tap
specialized,
dancing.
no, you're very specialized, unique healing. And so, I mean, but that's of our mindset, right? And
Yeah.
yours, that it all starts out here and it comes in. So
Yeah.
if you get rid of it out here, then it doesn't lodge.
Yeah.
And then it won't show up here? Well, that's what I'm trying to understand. Or is it like already preset that it could be?
That's a great question.
That's
This
what
is
I wanna
already
know.
preset. So this is when we have to go
I know
into
why. It was a
our
good reason I wanted you here.
beliefs. This is where I think, this is my version of my beliefs, that when we come into this lifetime, numerous times, we incarnate, that's my belief, we come with a certain set of pre-programmed emotions, and with those we learn our patterns, we learn to navigate through this life, and when we're finished, we should come out balanced. So if I know that I need more protection from the outside, then maybe I, honor myself more. Or if you know that you have more issues with bitterness, then maybe we need to release it more. So at the end, knowing your blueprint is that you become balanced. It's all about yin and yang. That's why I'm figuring that out and telling people about that.
This interests me so much. The reason why, too, especially, is because when I'm looking at your chart here, I feel like this is your kind of chart that you're looking at, because you're looking at the eyes are the window of the soul.
Yes.
I truly believe
Yes.
that. As a professional astrologer, I look at an astrological chart, and I'm seeing the different parts of the person. I'm actually an esoteric astrologer, so I'm looking at the person's soul. So it's really, you're doing it one way, I'm doing it another way. This is very interesting to me. That's
perfect.
why I love this, yeah.
And I do
really
it
love
another way
this.
with your
I know,
photography
that's
and the
what I'm
healing.
saying,
That's right.
yeah,
That's
see?
right.
And we all,
Yeah.
so we all do
Come
do
out
it
to the
unique-
same information.
Exactly,
Right.
exactly, it's wonderful.
When you looked at our eyes, if we did this prior, when you looked at our eyes, did the part that we are healers that came out?
Not that clear. No, it does come out because when I talk about you being more inflexible, remember when I was saying that this type usually shows inflexibility and not open-minded, that's far away from you. So you have balanced yourself. So for example, the really brown iris, they're very emotionally inward and outward. And so they have to learn to not control their life that much. So their association with their iris goes in the organ system of circulatory system, right? Circulatory system, your heart, your arteries, it's all about letting life flow, right? So that's the connection. And they have more issues with the, thyroid or Hashimoto. And that's also an endocrine system is about coordinating the messages. So listening
Do you watch
inside.
the expressions on our eyes?
Yeah.
I'm watching your
Yes.
expressions and I'm reading you, and I mean your eyes are accenting the words
That's good.
as you say that. It's like it's a physical accent on the word. You see that?
There we go. That's why we need a part 2. Right?
Now we're going to get a part 3 and 4.
I know, right? With me, we're going to be here every other month.
Well, it's just so in-depth, you know what I mean? This is
Yeah,
an
this
in-depth
is really-
subject, and the next time you're here, what did you say you wanted to talk about?
I wanted to talk about the birth order. Birth order is when we take the pictures now, and now we can track back now your behave of being the firstborn daughter or the firstborn son and being the generations back, and you can see that through the irises too. There's also emotional behavior attached to that. But I also brought into this part too that we have specific influence, and not just the color in the iris that influences our behave. We have certain marks in it, and that's why we were laughing before we were on the show, because I was making fun of myself, which is always good. So what that means is now we can finally see the picture 1, which is
You see that?
actually me.
All the blood ran right to your face.
I know, picture 1. If we could see that finally.
Brian, bring it up.
Picture 1 is actually my eyes, and I thought I would just expose myself, and you see that little blue arrow there with the brown pigment.
What's the little brown pigment?
Yeah, you know what that is?
What?
That means accumulator of knowledge.
How about that?
So the more brown pigments, the more I accumulate. You
Well, you
see.
have blue eyes. You're at a disadvantage, right?
No, because the brown eyes has the black pigments. So we can see
Okay.
that too. So this is the eyes is called analytical. And that analytical person is, in this case, me. I'm collecting wisdom. I'm collecting maps, as you can see. So I'm all into that because I want to know. I'm on the path of knowing in this lifetime. But here are the disadvantages. I'm not very spontaneous because I need to overthink everything.
No.
Yes. I think I sent you 20 emails before I showed up here, right?
Yeah, but it were good emails.
Okay, good.
No, wait, bring that back up again, Brian. I want to share something. Now, this is what I see. You see how there is actually a pyramid coming down through your pupil and down that way, and another one going side to side. You see that?
Yes.
Now, what does that mean?
In this case, I actually have to hand it over to you because spiritually that means maybe I have a higher energy or I drive my knowledge from there.
Actually, I feel like that it has to do with your balance and spirit, because when God comes down, he comes down this way, and the earth, Mother Earth, comes up, and they merge, and it looks like it's merging right in your pupil. You
There we
see,
go.
and the eyes, or chakras, as some people say, and so I bet that at
You know what that
times they
looks-
twirl. What?
You know what that looks like?
What?
You ever have one of those glass orbs that you touch and electricity goes to it? Look at all, it looks like
Yeah.
an electrical
Yeah.
post.
You know, it's so
Yeah.
funny because this eye I use a lot in my iridology school because there's so much going on.
Yeah.
It's busy.
Yeah, it's very busy.
But it also looks, now this is going to sound weird, but I mean, being in war photography and seeing spirits and everything, it actually looks to me there's a spirit crouching on the left side and another being on the right side.
There's a letter M right there on top. You see the M?
Yes.
So
Yeah, I
as you
see
can
it.
see, I mean, you can see so much. So
Yeah.
that's why today I'm just talking about the pigments. And we
Right.
talked last time, the first time I was here, about the spiritual messages through the pupil. But if we get the next picture now, picture 2, I brought a picture now about an expressive person. See that? How you
Oh,
see
yeah.
the loops
Look
around
at
it?
that.
It
Yeah.
looks like a sunflower, right? Or
Yeah.
like some kind of flower with the petals.
Yeah.
This is considered the person who loves to be in a center of attention. They're like a little bit of drama queen, but they love to be with people. So in this case, I think 80% of Hollywood probably has expressive irises because they are very creative, very outgoing. They love to be with groups of people, but here's the one side effect for them. They cannot sit by themselves. Like they always need somebody outside from themselves. So they need to learn to kind of love themselves and not through the eyes of others.
Yeah, and enjoy
Right?
their own company, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Learn to love themselves. Yeah, I
Right.
got
You
it.
can't
Yeah.
love anybody else until you learn how to do that.
That's true. That's
Yeah.
so
Because the
true.
love will never be true.
And then the next picture I brought was picture 3, which should be a mediator. So you see how it looks like a lake? It looks like a stream. The fibers are very straight out from the center. And we call those kind of personalities mediators. They love peace and harmony. It's like a lake. You know, imagine you're like floating on a lake
They
and
just
there's no
said it was-
movement.
It's total balance.
Yeah.
It's balance.
And they're
That's
born
why-
like
That's
that.
why they're the mediators.
Yes.
This is balance. They like everything balanced. I like everything balanced.
Yes.
When you say they're born like that, are you, and you were referring before in reference to past lives, are you saying that they balanced their past lives and they're in this, okay, so that's, I'd like to
I
understand
think when
that.
we came into this life, the pattern maybe switched a little bit and changed around so they get the experience this way. Because
Okay.
obviously I wasn't a stream, so maybe I was more of a calm person in my life.
Okay,
All right, we doing more, April?
Yeah, so I have another picture, that's picture 4,
Orion.
which is called the catalyst. And that one, you see a little bit the arrows, they're like very thin and light. You see one at the pigment, and on the left to the lacuna, we call them half circles, or we call them in an iridology lacuna. So they have both. Now we talk about an expressive person and also a collector of knowledge. So those are the mover and shakers, innovator, creator. They create their own system, their own kind of like inventions. So innovator, and I would say definitely that's kind of almost like a personality like Steve Jobs, right? He created for us the iPhone. So that, and I said that
And
to
we've been
you, you
suffering
had
ever
that.
since.
Remember I
really?
said that to you, that you're a mover and shaker?
yes, you did say that.
Yeah, that you
Thank
create your own system?
Yes,
Yeah.
I do, too. You were absolutely right on.
There we go.
you.
Now, what do you think about people who have their eyes are almost white?
When they're so pale and so white, then generally said they have more issues with being acidic physically.
That's what I thought,
With
yeah.
rheumatoid arthritis. But also it's just then I look at the fiber structure, which is the lining of the fibers, not the colors for the personality traits.
Okay, you can take that down, Brian.
You're talking about not the actual eye, not the iris itself, the
The colors.
The
around-
colors
Yeah,
around the eye.
yeah.
I've met a couple
very,
of
very,
people.
very pale.
Right,
Yeah.
like a lot of white.
I see a lot of people who are very, very yellow.
Yeah, yellow is always associated to the liver when it's
liver,
in this
yeah.
clera.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
this is just like one of the information that I wanted to bring to you is pretty new in my field, and I wanted to work on it. So it's also that when we know one iris is not the best iris. Like people always say, well, what iris pattern should I have to be perfect, right? And that doesn't exist. There is no perfect iris because each one has to be balanced out. So example, I'm like a little bit more in my head and I read tons of books and I'm looking so much for the knowledge outside myself that I forget to look inside. And this is where you helped me. Remember when
yeah.
we met?
Yeah, because I was doing, I was reading right next to her the aura pictures, and of course I could see spirits in them and this and that, and it made her come out of her shell to go in the spiritual direction and learn more about that, which is great, because the thing that people like about the aura photography is that it's like if you want to see your angels, for instance, you know, you believe you have angels, but it's really something else to actually see them on your aura. And Tommy has a beautiful aura here. We did that last show where we did the auras, and it's fascinating. So, you know, there's just so much we can go, so much we can do. You know
And
what
this
I
is
mean?
where I learned from you, because I was very shy, because I'm very like book smart and I want to have facts and I don't want to talk about my intuition and my image is to see for the pupil, and then you invited
not
me.
you.
No, not me.
No.
because there's not so much scientific based knowledge behind it, but at the end I
Here's
learned.
what I'll tell you what to do. You're very well read, you're very well knowledgeable by it. Take what you read and make it your own.
Yeah, that's
Cut corners, you can
Yeah.
change things, because there is no right and wrong in it.
Yeah.
It's how your perception of what you've read and how you project it, which is going to be true to you.
right.
You know, that's true of all knowledge, at least for
Yes.
me. If I've read so many hundreds of books in my life, and if I told you I learned something from someone or a book, I'll be darned if I can remember what book, what was the author, who it was. It just, you know, it all just gets assimilated, you know what I mean?
Right.
And
You-
so what can you do, right?
That's exactly. So we want to learn from each other, and we were talking about. I'm going for divorce right now, so like relationship is the issue again for me. So I can read my iris. I know what my problems are.
Right, right.
So I know to bounce myself off, I need somebody who is more creative, who is more spontaneous, easygoing, because that would not rebel it. Because we need to find our opposite, and most likely, if you believe it or not, we do actually.
Because
The long-term relationship that you had.
Yeah.
I had the picture from your husband.
Yeah, oh,
and I
yeah.
have seen your picture now.
Yeah.
You guys were a perfect match.
Yeah, we lasted a really long time until we crossed over, so I'd say so.
So I saw we are attracted to what we are weak in. Is that interesting?
Well, and opposites attract to a
Yes.
degree too, you know,
Yes.
so.
Oh, geez, just keep on throwing the stones. Go ahead.
Oh,
Go ahead. Just keep on
Oh,
throwing.
this- oh, yeah, that's true.
I wasn't even thinking of you, Tom.
I took pictures.
I'm
and
only
then,
the rooster in the hen house. I can't use the other one on TV.
Yeah.
But I was taking the pictures backstage, and I said, "Oh, you guys are equal. Like you guys have a similar pattern, and that's why you're both expressive. That's why you have a TV show. That's why you want to bring out your message." And that's exactly what I saw in both of you guys' eyes.
That's great. And you know what's funny? You mentioned about the yin-yang balance, and that's been my whole work for the past year, although I do it on a cosmic, universal basis, or multidimensional. And that is, of course, causing a lot of rebalancing issues for mankind. And I try to do it every day. Well, it doesn't need it every single day, but almost every day. And and emotional mental balancing goes
Yeah.
along with that, because what I find is when the emotional mental balance is off, so is the yin yang, and also the axiotonal alignment and the point. Do you know about the assemblage point?
No.
The assemblage point will be, let's say it's a giant circle where it's supposed to be, right here, right? And depending on what's going on in your life, you'll have many splinters. Like when I was really bad and not well, points would be down here, and that would mean fatigue. You know what I mean, and so forth. But when everybody is very perfectly balanced and everything, it centers right here. Now you can balance that energetically, right? But it will not maintain until you actually do the emotional spiritual work.
Yeah.
So now I know, based on what you saw in my lungs, that I have to do emotional balancing and transmutation for grief.
Yes.
But you should do it for any negative emotions. Transmute it into love, light, mercy, grace, and forgiveness.
Right.
And forgiveness.
And forgiveness.
Don't
That's
forget
key.
forgiveness, and say it. Just say it all the time. You forgive a person or
Well-
someone.
I brought 5 more pictures. You want to see them?
Oh, yeah.
Brian.
Whereas So the next picture that I thought is, so we talked about the colors, right? Now we talked about pigments or little lacunas in there or circles. Now we have rings towards the outer edge of the irises, and they also have a meaning. So the first one that we see on TV is called the Ring of Freedom or Accomplishments. We also call them contraction first in the iridology world, but today, because I'm talking about primary about emotions, those are the people, they cannot stand still. Like type E personality, they always need to do something. They either need to like have one project finished and start the next one, and they always in a rush. Even like on the weekends, they can never have a Sunday without any plans. So they're kind of like wounded up, kind of little like, you know, when you wound it up and it just goes. So for me is to tell them, you're going to hit the wall if you don't breathe, right? Or you slow down, or you find your own center. So that's why it says Ring of Accomplishments, because they have a million things accomplished. And we were talking about that. You said the souls are not. We're here to.
What I said was we are human beings, not human doings. See, now, I guess you're done with that?
Yeah, with that
Okay,
one.
Brian, you could take that down. Thank you. And, but
Is that ours?
huh? No, that wasn't one of ours.
Oh, okay.
But no, the thing is, like for instance, I like to have a plan every day. But on Sunday, if I say I'm going to do nothing but relax today,
Yes.
that's what I want to do.
Yeah, sure.
That's
you know?
perfect. That's
Right?
And she
exactly.
said, all the time, the guy's painting my living room. All the time, the guy's putting the towels down the base. Are you relaxing? I'm relaxing. The whole time she's sitting outside with a cup of hot tea in the heat. Tomorrow's 100 degrees. You won't have to warm it up.
Well,
Ice
the good
cold,
thing
ice
is,
cold.
the good thing is I know what ring she has, and we'll get to that.
yeah.
So if we can see the next picture, picture 6 was the Ring of Harmony. So you can see it looks like a rosary or little flocks around the edge.
Yeah.
Those are the people who need to have harmony. They need to kind of find peace. They don't like, too much turmoil going on. And that they're also very great in this case of like teachers or patients. And that's why I brought that one. Ring of Harmony. I actually have that, which is interesting, but just halfway.
You say ring of rosary. It looks like rosary beads.
Yes, and it goes back again, as you say, they come with the stillness.
And
So
it looks like a sunflower around the.
that's also the center. Then the next picture, that's what we found on your iris, remember?
Yeah.
The Ring of Purpose. And we were saying that this person is in this earth and knows it has a mission. It knows it wants to, there is something very important for them to do for mankind. And they're okay to wait or not to know at that moment. They have this inner patience that they're okay with being in between. And so as, yeah.
We were talking about that today.
The missions,
About
yeah.
people, that there are many Christs on the earth right now.
Yeah.
But they, like she says to me, goes, well, we've done all this work to achieve that level, okay? And these people are, in third world countries and stuff like that, where they don't have half the knowledge and things that we have about these things. And the reason why is they're more pure of heart, because they're simple.
Because they don't have the education,
right.
they don't live in our
Because the
fast-paced
education
world.
is what dumbs everybody down. They think
Right.
it makes you smarter. It don't.
Yeah. No.
And we were talking about how some of these people, they don't even know that they're the Christ, that they've achieved that. However, what does it say in the Bible? Something about little children will judge angels, and something about the eye of the needle, the child. I'm not sure.
You have to, in order to, it would be something about the children. You have about as much chance to go to the eye of the needle if you don't come to God with the innocence of a child.
There you go. That's it. That's
Jeez,
it.
I remembered my Bible stuff.
Okay, there you go. There
I
you
am a
go.
minister,
Yeah, I know. So am I.
So I
But I
brought,
forget.
I brought
you.
another iris, and that one was, we saw a little bit on your eyes, remember that? But you're not it. Like you have balanced yourself from the eyes. So if we can see the eyes, picture 8, which was Ring of Determination. So when you see the
That's pretty cool.
white ring around the edge, is Ring of Determination. This is usually when we get a little older, we get stuck in the way we are.
Isn't that like a sign of when cataracts or whatever are coming on?
Yes and no, because usually this is more like cholesterol, aging of the arteries. But in this case, it just comes because we're aging, right? But there's also the saying, ring of determination means that we're a certain way now and nobody can change us. And I noticed that with me being, in my age and having 2 children, I noticed I'm getting a little lazy with learning the new technology.
She's such a fossil.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Come on. You
No, but
I have a car as old as you.
But I can tell that I'm already kind of like shutting down a little bit. I don't want to learn about the newest gadget.
Wow.
I could care about the gadgets. Oh, my God.
So the ring of determination is just, again, another warning that we need to, if you have that
Not
sign.
to become headstrong.
Yeah, and we have to be more flexible and open-minded when it comes on to us. That's what I'm
See, now
bringing
that
out.
looks like a Merkabah to me.
It does.
That looks like a Merkabah.
It does. It most certainly does.
And if you have that in your eyes, you with the age, as you're saying, then what
What are
would
you trying to say?
I'm saying?
What are you trying to say?
I'm going to tell you if you'll give me a minute.
You
Ask.
put 2 of us together, we're over 250.
I know. What I'm saying is ask God for new eyes.
Why? I like the ones I got.
Because of the fact that she's talking about
Can
the
I get blue this
aging. I don't know, Tommy. That's between
I'm
you
asking
and you.
her.
I know,
Oh,
I didn't say
yeah.
I'm not mentioning your eyes on the show. I'm right here.
Okay. She did take a picture of my eyes. They were very beautiful, too.
Yes, they
But
were.
here's the point, what I'm having is you're so open-minded, you're so immersed into energy healing and holistic healing, and a lot of people think that's kind of weird, but you're on your own path because you know from inside that this is the new path, this is how you can help others, so you're far away from your structure that you actually brought into this lifetime.
How about that?
That's cool. And you know what? It's
good.
true. It's spiritual maturity. And don't forget that we've been in training until now,
Yeah.
maybe a few years ago. And so now the teachers really show themselves. You know what I mean? The teachers are here.
Yeah.
Talk about being in training.
Yeah.
I looked at some of the earlier stuff we did when we
Yeah.
first started out.
Yeah.
Man, we were corny. I mean, we had a set that looked like it was bare.
Yeah.
I mean, at least now it's a fulfilled
Well,
thing. I
yeah.
was looking at it and said, man, that ain't me. I was like too much, like that much wider.
Well, you know, that was 13 seasons ago, right?
Wow.
And
10 years.
so,
That's
yeah.
amazing.
Can you believe that?
That's
Can you
amazing.
Believe? So it's been that long, and we've grown. Yeah, the show has grown. You know,
And we're coming back. We're still in the game too.
yeah.
That's
Oh,
right.
yeah. Yeah.
So my next eye that I brought is an extrovert eye. So I wanted to talk how I even know if somebody's an introvert or extrovert. And you can see that little ring here that's like yellow. I have the arrow there.
Yeah.
If it would be really close to the pupil, that would be introvert. If it comes further out, it's an extrovert. And if I don't know if everybody's familiar what that means. Introvert are more like, they like to be a little bit by themselves. They don't always want to be in a group of people. They're a little bit more like into reading books. They don't always need
Nerds.
others, right?
Nerds.
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, it's kind of.
For lack of a better word.
And then extroverts, the moment when they have a time off, they need to go out and meet people or be in the middle of people to feel like they're belonging.
Now that eye is kind of white. What we were talking about
Yes.
before.
Yes.
So they're probably
Very
a bit
acidic, yeah, and I
Mhm.
would suggest
Yeah.
the alkaline diet.
Yeah.
So I wanted to point also out introvert and extrovert, and I had a really fun experience when I had a client. She's like into TV selling TV like sweaters or clothes, or and you have to be very much of an extrovert, right? You'd be able to
Yeah.
talk to everybody. But she had a very closed-in collarette, like we said, and I said, you're actually introvert, and she's like, I have no idea how you know that, because I'm trying to hide it. Because I'm all about extrovert in my job, but when it's time to close the door, she goes and doesn't want to meet anybody.
And she becomes a recluse.
Yes. So again, doesn't mean extrovert is better or introvert is better. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying about finding your balance, right?
That's what it's all about, right? Mm-hmm. Yes, it is. I didn't see any green eyes.
Well, green eyes are like the blue eyes with yellow
Well, that's
over
one
it.
like it was green.
No, Oh, that wasn't green.
Sure it
That's
did.
slightly green
little bit
because
of
the
green.
pigments, when I have my digital camera, they show the pixelation from the blue coming so strong that you just see a tiny little yellow over it. But when we see it in natural light, it turns green.
Well, now, isn't green the rare eye?
Not really, because it comes from us that we gotten too acidic, and somebody just recently said that blue eyes, like all our food is now too acidic, right? Like we're eating too much protein and we're drinking too much like acidic drinks, sodas and alcohol and
coffee. I love my coffee.
Yeah, and so I feel like from generation to generations now, the blue eyes turn more and more green now because the yellow comes on it, which is weakness with the kidneys.
Now, I'm sorry, go
No,
ahead.
no, I was just gonna say it happened to a friend of mine. When I knew her and we were kids, she had beautiful blue eyes.
Yeah.
Big blue eyes, right? And now she has big green eyes
Yeah.
after 3 kids.
Yeah.
You know, and everything else, and she got older, and now she has green eyes. I can't believe that. I never knew the eyes could change the color.
Well, you know, there's like the saying that there's like some kind of rhythm of a time clock on it, like the universe, God, somebody had a plan. And
Okay.
I can also see that on my older daughter right now. My younger daughter is right here in the audience. Her eyes are bright blue. I saw that on my older daughter, my 17-year-old. She had very bright blue eyes, but her story was that she's getting more and more yellow in it, and now she turns more and more yellow pigments on the kidneys, and it becomes a story from my great grandmother and her grandmother, my mother, and I have some yellow in there. So
it's a lineage thing.
yes, and it's almost like it shows up when it's time for it,
Jeez, where did time go?
right?
Now, I wanted to ask you something. I'm not sure if I'm right, but I seem to remember reading somewhere that a baby is born with the eye and a colon, or something like that, or the intestines.
That they develop with the-
develop from the eye and the colon, or intestines.
Right. I mean, the way I learned is like that the eyes are the attachment to the spine and to the brain. Like the first thing you see when you develop as an embryo
Yeah.
is the brain, and the
Right.
extension
Right.
is the
But the
pupil.
the-
But there also the next thing that develops is actually the spine, and that turns into the colon. Then it develops out
Yeah.
of the skeleton.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I remembered a piece of it. So that was
I don't know if
interesting.
you know this, but the colon's on the complete opposite end.
I know, so it goes brain to
Yeah.
complete
But
opposite
didn't
end.
I tell you that the brain is definitely connected to that?
Well, of course it
Yeah.
is.
That's
I tell you,
exactly
it's
true.
just, absolutely. That's why your memories become a brain fart.
Oh my God,
That
Tommy.
was a good one.
What do we got, Chris?
Ah.
Can I ask
Jeez,
one
did
he's
you have
terrible
more
with them
pictures?
fingers.
I'm not more
Okay.
pictures, but I can still talk about a little bit about left and right brain if you guys want to know, because that's about the female energy and the male energy.
Oh, sure, go ahead.
So as we were seeing is the analytical mind, right? We were talking about, and you were really interested about that, is that the right eye is connected to the father, right? Which is the left brain, right? So the left brain is more the masculine, that's more the analytical brain. And then the left eye is more the female, because it's the right brain, which is the creative brain, right? So when I look into the iris now, and I look at both irises, I look which iris has more signs in it. The one that has more signs, like pigments, lacunas, or any kind of stars or signs, that's the one that's dominant in that life. So in my case, of course, it's actually not the left brain, which is funny. It's the right brain. So in this case, I kind of
it's a male
balance
energy, huh?
myself out,
You're
right?
one heckin' good-looking man. I tell you.
But what I'm saying is like, so the expressive iris, they can still balance themselves out of not being too creative and not too artistic, but being in the left brain dominance.
Well, I do believe the brain is wired to the opposite side. Like this goes down like this and controls that side
Yeah.
of the body, and that
Yeah.
goes and controls that
Yeah.
side of the body. So it makes perfect sense.
And it's the same when we like hurting on that side, to say it's the father side, right? Or it's the left is the mother side.
Yeah.
That you have like problems with some mother-in-law or something.
Oh, boy.
or Father God, Mother God.
Can I ask a question? When babies are born, their eyes are blue, and then they change color
Yes.
as they get
Yeah,
older.
that's happened to
right?
my kids.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. They were blue, right?
Mhm.
So why is that? And then they changed.
You know,
Like, what does
that's-
that indicate with
That's
this?
the thing is what blue eyes really are. They have no pigment, so they actually have no layer into the deeper down. So that's why it looks like a halo of blue. It's an emptiness. So then when we have more pigments over it, you become a pattern or you can see it better. So that's really the difference between a brown eye and a blue eye is that the brown eye have more pigments between the lower level and then seeing through the iris. That's it. So I feel like when babies are born, they're kind of like this brand new open vessel,
I see.
right? How you pronounce it?
Hazel.
And then we screw them up society-wise. No,
Not the truth.
Vessel.
vessel.
Vessel, yeah.
Iridology.
Yeah, I know, right? It's
Thank you,
difficult
JC, but- Oh, I tell you.
for me.
What do we got? We have 6 minutes. Jeez. I think my iridology is going a little blind lately.
Well, you know, I wanted to tell the story how I got turned on to iridology. This is going back many years now, but anyway, I was at an expo and there was a wonderful iridologist there, and he says to me, "Are you aware you had a minor heart attack about 5 years ago?" I said, "Oh, yeah." You know, it was funny, though, because I was rushed to the hospital. They put me in overnight, and I had been working with a group of energy healers, and I called them all on the phone. I told them what happened, and they all started working on me. And, of course, I called on Father, Mother, God, Jesus, and the next morning when they did the stress test, nothing showed up on the machines. But I mean, physically, I could still feel it. And people that were clairvoyant could see damage to my aura and spiritual body. But that was all repaired. But I find it so interesting that overnight, it was actually
Isn't it good to
repaired.
have friends that could do that?
Oh, yeah.
They
Yeah.
did that for me when I had the shoulder surgery.
Yeah.
Everything showed there. I had tears in the road. I had tears in the bursa. When they did the surgery, I was doing this the next day. There
Wow.
was nothing wrong with the shoulder.
Wow.
He told my wife, he says, it was there, it's not there.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
we all help each
Miracles.
other.
Miracles
That's right. We all help each
performed.
other.
I
Yes.
believe in miracles. Miracles
Yeah.
happen
And
every day.
Chris? Okay, we got 4 minutes.
Got 4
Last
minutes,
shots
so-
here. Ask a question quickly, answer quickly.
You have any questions?
Yeah, I do.
Go ahead.
Okay, when you said ancestral,
Mm-hmm.
I'd like to know, like, can you tell with your charts when you take your picture how far back ancestrally? How many
In
generations?
this case, it comes from question and answers. I would have to ask if they have had the experience. If not, then I ask for the next generation behind. So that's how we find. And that's why I was telling the story when we started to talk about iridology, that there was this one famous guy in Europe who said, "I can see the sign but not the disease." Little did he know that this was imprints from 2 generations back.
Oh, wow.
Or 3 generations
the
back.
generation
and it's
was gonna
just
carry.
carried on. It's like a DNA structure, a DNA strand.
You know, I'd love to see Steve's niece or nephew's eyes. I'll tell you why iridology-wise, because cancer runs in his family, and that's how we crossed over, unfortunately.
So you want to pinpoint where it is? so
Well,
you
no,
can-
we actually, I actually did work to break that curse going back generations, to break that pattern, and I would love to see that it was broken. Would it show?
There is a research out where they're trying to break the pattern by awareness, you know, like emotional freedom tapping, meditation, and they heal the mother from whatever the grief was or whatever
right.
that emotion was attached to her organ system. And then she has a next generation that followed the iris and the sign was still there, but the mother's more open-minded. She educates the child differently. And then they saw a little bit more like 3rd, 4th generation that the signs already kind of slightly disappear.
Yeah,
Cool.
because I'm of a belief that it goes back, I mean, this is my belief, that it goes back 7 generations usually.
That's
know.
what I was told to clear both generations on both sides of the family for both me and my husband, 7
All
generations.
right, we're going to have to end this.
Yeah.
We got 2.5 minutes, so in our brief time that we have,
Yeah.
I want to thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you.
You and Mary.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you.
They're always
You guys.
wonderful guests. We're going to have to do more on this because there
Mm-hmm.
seems to be a hell of a lot more to go over.
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe my eye will be different next time.
Yeah, because my eyes were.
I know, and I haven't even tapped into like time risk and spiritual and pupil, you know.
I know, I couldn't
I mean, we
believe
have
it.
not even touched anything
I
yet.
couldn't believe that they changed so much, and it was quite so obvious. Yeah, that was fascinating.
And let me thank
That
our,
was fascinating.
let me thank our
Thank
studio
you.
audience and
Yeah.
our TV family out there.
Yeah,
And Brian in the booth,
yeah,
who holds
And our
this
crew.
whole thing together.
yeah,
Okay, camera people
yeah.
and floor manager Christine, and oh, there he is, Tracy. And I was going to call you Steve for a minute. See what you did, Richie? Okay, I would change this whole perspective. All right,
Thank
now you
you.
can get a last second in because we have a minute.
We're all snowflakes, like all unique in
Oh,
our
you had to use that one?
patterns and in our colors, and there's no need to change anything. We just learn how to balance all the personality traits into our iris. So when we move on to the next life, we have enhanced our pattern to become a more enlightened or more balanced.
Great, and more evolved.
Exactly.
Okay, we gotta
Yeah.
wrap it up. We gotta wrap it up. We gotta wrap it up. Let me thank our sponsors, Antonio's Pork Store in Tottenville for the food that we almost had, and Aardvark Pest Control in Great Kills, my good friend Vinny Bonacore. And that should do it.
And our TV audience.
I said that before.
Yeah, okay, I missed that.
I never seen your lips move. I had my hand up your shirt. Yeah, it's okay. Oh, that's just on
Bye,
bye.
Thank you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Wave goodbye. Everybody wave goodbye.
Bye.
What was that? I didn't hear that. What was that? Oh, see, it's at least three. Thank you so much. Do you see my head swelling from that?
Yeah,
Okay.
well, we'll see you next time.
Goes too quick.
I know, it goes so quick.
Well, we covered all.
Very quick, yes.